when the MGS3 script was leaked, Scott Dolph started going to fan sites and threatening to sue people who were spreading it
Oh,
around.
he went apeshit completely.
It's like,
Is that right?
They're your fans.
It's their fault for using a casting agency that makes the scripts public.
Yeah.
Is that so? What happened? I never heard about that.
They used a casting agency to recruit voice actors for Metal Gear Solid 3, and if all you had to do to look at all the scripts they had was pay like $1. And one of the guys from an old forum...
It was all online?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was all online. One guy who... I can't remember if he was like an amateur voice actor or something, but he was a member of this old site I used to go to, went and decided, hey, I'll just pay the few dollars to get all the scripts and read them out, and then he got them, and it was everything.
It was everything? They gave all the scripts?
It listed all the character bios about the boss, about...
Oh my god.
All the Cobras, pretty much the entire game.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Go ahead and tell a story about Scott Dolph.
Scott Dolph. So, all right. So I'll tell you a story about Scott Dolph. You know, you're not gonna get this shit from anywhere else, but you can believe me. It's the solid truth. You know, it's the Metal Gear Solid truth, if you will. Recording sessions, Metal Gear Solid, L.A. Scott Dolph, he's got jet lag, you know. I mean, we're there for 2 weeks. Scott Dolph flew in on, I don't even remember if he was there from the beginning. He wasn't very involved in the project, and that's the truth. But he flew in as a representative of Kojima to see the recording sessions. It's my memory that he came in on, like, I don't know, the fourth day or third day or fourth day or fifth day, sometime in between, after we'd been going. And I just remember him crashed down on the couch a lot. He was like pretty much sleeping through all the sessions. He didn't know the script, which was natural because he didn't translate it, and nobody went through it, like so quickly that they knew anything about it. Chris Zimmerman was the director, and I have to give her props. She was a great director. But I was really the assistant director. I mean, I spoke almost as much as her. What I didn't do was have a nice little organized clear plastic binder with all these tags and stuff in it, and all these things. But what I did do very well was give voice direction. Since I wrote the script, I knew in my head, what I wanted every line to sound like. That's the way I write. I kind of have someone do the line in my head. To speak to the issue of why the voice acting probably sucks after Metal Gear Solid 1, and I haven't played the game, so I don't really, know that it does. I just kind of suspect it because the way voice acting sessions are is like this. Voice actors don't really, they want to get paid, but mostly they're worried about, getting the fuck out of there and getting to their next job. They don't really, and they don't pre-read. Very few voice actors pre-read the script. They don't know what the fuck's going on. They get in there. They all think they sound so great, and they all think they, can do everything so perfectly. They can just do it cold, and it'll sound great. Don't worry about it. Especially in Hollywood, that's what they'll tell you. Don't worry about it. Sound great. We'll put it together. We'll do bing bang, bing bang. I got a great recorder. Greatest engineer you ever saw. This guy will make it all sound great. You'll love it.
Yeah.
And they don't fucking care. So if you want it to sound good, you have to really be on their ass. You have to say, "Hey man, you sound like you're talking to the fucking TV. You know, talk to me. You got, especially when you're recording voice actors out of sequence. Many times. Snatcher, we did something weird. We recorded a lot of voice actors together. Like three guys in the same scene.
Yeah.
Which is unusual these days. Now, a lot of things, especially anime and stuff like that, are just done piecemeal. You'll take one guy, he's in the booth for 4 hours. He gets paid his union fee for 4 hours, and he does his part against nobody. So he's got these lines floating around in the air, not playing up against anybody.
Yeah.
So a real good way to improve the acting is to have actors having fun with each other. They get to know each other. They develop some rapport, but it's not very economically efficient.
I see what you're saying. Like, isn't that what they did in Japan too? They had all the actors in the same studio recording together.
Well, Japan, one misconception that I think I see that should be cleared up is that um, to do a job in Japan, an English language version of a game in Japan. Think about this for a minute. Do you know who is available in Japan to do these games?
Okay, well, you worked on Silent Hill 2, right?
Yeah, I worked on
Okay,
two,
I see what you're saying,
three
though.
and four.
Yeah, and like, I totally agree with you. In Japan, getting English voice actors is hard as hell. And Silent
Yeah,
Hill 2 and 3 and all that, Silent Hill 2 specifically, you guys got actors in Japan, correct? Like, some of them were. I
yeah.
remember, yeah, James Sunderland, he was, like,
I think on two they were all in Japan, if I remember correctly.
yeah,
So,
the actor for
mm,
Eddie's actually some sort of radio DJ or something like that.
yeah, yeah, that
So you
sounds
just
right.
kind of sort of find who you can.
You just find who you can, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like the guy who played, and there was a lot of hit and misses, but uh, these jobs are all done on a limited budget, and people have limited time, and some all these different limiting factors come up. But especially like Silent Hill 2. I mean, we hired total amateurs. The guy who played the lead, it was such a funny story about that.
Yeah, I heard. He
Well,
wasn't even there to audition. The
yeah,
Japanese guy saw him. He's
you
like,
heard.
okay, get in
Yeah,
here.
you're, it wasn't even like that. No, the
What?
guy, no, the guy was there. He brought his daughter.
Yeah,
Okay,
that was
I
it.
needed a little girl, to
Hmm.
do this
Laura.
character.
Yeah.
Yeah, Laura, and he brought his daughter, and she really, she, I don't want to say anything bad about his daughter, okay, but she wasn't material for the part. Okay, so this guy comes up to me and he says, can you let me audition for like the main part? I don't, I can't remember if he said it in Japanese or English for some reason, but he said,
Yeah.
I don't have a job.
Huh?
You know,
Is
he
that
said
what
I
he
don't have a
told you?
job. Yeah, I'm out of work. He said, right?
Ugh.
Okay, so I auditioned him, and everybody up to that point had really sucked, and he just sucked.
Yeah.
So he kind of got the job. He kind of had this gloomy looking face, and this gloomy manner. And when he said he was out of work, and so he kind of fit the character, you know.
Yeah.
And we had to think about motion capture for that game too.
Yeah, and
And
you guys were just.
he physically kind of looked the part and stuff. So
Yeah.
anyway, it turns out this guy was like a millionaire many,
Yeah.
many, many times over.
That's what I was saying. Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah,
saying.
he was a fucking millionaire. He drove this like probably $150,000 car to work. I remember this
Yeah.
big fucking like weird like GM Hummer looking fucking thing.
Yeah, he's some sort of head of a stockbroker company or some sort of
Yeah,
insurance, something like that. He's
you're
in.
very
That's
you're very
he told you that he didn't have a job. I was like, that guy is full of shit. I saw his website, and he's sitting there
Aaron. How do you
speaking
know
in
all this shit, man? What is your deal, man? How do you know all this shit?
just like
It's
reading
crazy.
around. Like I do some freelance writing here and there. I just run into the shit out of nowhere. I mean, I played Silent Hill 2. I like the acting in it. It's
I
not.
found your ass sitting in a game store in Newark.
Let me tell
Yeah.
you, man. Two was a tight plot. I got to give a big hand to Owaku, the guy who wrote that script. He's a freak. He's a creepy freak. He
Oh,
really is.
this is
He's a
such a great interview, dude. I swear.
he's the creepiest. He's the creepiest, freakiest, darkest guy. This guy, but he was a programmer on Silent Hill 1, and he came out of nowhere and wrote the script for 2, which I think is a brilliant script. But 2 was a great job for me because I actually went to Japan to talk about Silent Hill 2 with the team before there was even a story. You know,
Hmm.
they invited me to come to Japan to say like what kinds of things can we do that are scary to Americans versus Japanese. How about incest? And I'd be like, no incest. Well, I mean, I guess in Japan, incest is like okay to talk about, more so than here, But I
Oh,
said, no, not.
these people are
So
insane.
is Silent Hill not received as severely in Japan as you'd say it is here? Because there's a lot
Um,
of over here.
I,
There's like a lot of taboos.
I would say I don't really have much knowledge about how it was received in Japan. I
Yeah.
think that I think that it was less popular in general. I I think that might have creeped them out too much. You know, I don't know. Silent Hill. I think I see Silent Hill. And maybe it's because of my influence on it, but I see it as pretty Western.
Yeah, you can't even tell it's originally written in Japanese. I mean, they don't have it's all voice acted in English to go, right? Except for the
Um,
dog ending of Silent Hill 2, which is all in Japanese, right?
yeah, well, that was just a joke. Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, was it the original voice actor? Did he do the Japanese voice acting for that part too?
We talking about two?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, as I recall, we just said to him, he'd be in the booth, and we just said to him, okay, say, and he spoke some Japanese, so.
Yeah. He's,
But it wasn't. I mean, there was very little Japanese. It was only like I don't know what he said.
Two
Something
lines.
like
Yeah.
yeah. I think he said something like, "So you were the ones behind this," or something like that. "Omae no waza da," he said.
Yeah, I haven't seen. I have not even reached that ending in the game myself. I've seen it on
Yeah.
YouTube. But Ryan, we can hear you drinking your water.
It's not me.
That was me, buddy.
Oh.
That
Oh
wasn't
man.
water.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and edit that out. No
No,
problem.
I'm muting my microphone because I'm fighting off an allergy infection right now, so I'm sorry.
So okay, so you want to like get into the questions?
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, you kind of already explained how you got into translating in the Junker HQ interview. You said that you were translating like documents, medical documents, and stuff like that before, correct?
Well, I had been at Konami for about a year and a half or 2 years, somewhere between there. And I was working in the Tokyo headquarters in the business department,
Yeah.
and I wanted to get into the R&D. You know,
Mhm.
there's a company of about 1,100 people then, and I was the only foreigner. And man, I wanted to do cool, fun stuff. I wanted to do R&D, and I made the formal requests, and they turned me down. But in the meantime, I had R&D teams wanted to make use of me. So increasingly, they started sending me stuff to translate, or, what do you think about this? Or, and then I think, and so I worked on shit like, Animaniacs, and I wrote like scripts for Animaniacs and like Biker Mice from Mars. And,
Yeah, Animaniacs. That was a
Oh,
class
man.
game. I like that game.
um,
Old class.
yeah, I think I actually managed to put some funny gags into Animaniacs. Relatively funny for the time period. Because this was cartridges. I mean, the whole thing about translation and game quality of voices and all this stuff. Man, none of this was an issue when you're playing like fucking Tiny Toons Adventures. So, I got called in for Snatcher by this guy Haruki, who was in I believe he was working for Microsoft for a while. Haruki, after he left Konami. Haruki, and then Haruki, and the Bucho at that time was this guy who was a big shot for Sony named Kirita. And they were the ones in charge of the Sega division at Konami.
Yeah.
And fucking the PlayStation CD came out. I mean the Sega CD. What am I saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No problem.
So we wanted to service all 500 of the people who bought it. It was a good game.
I think it was more like 10 people, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, I was in charge of shipping. I know how many Snatchers we shipped. Let me tell you.
I heard the
It was
numbers was like
Like what,
2,000.
5?
No, it wasn't anywhere near 10,000. No.
2,000, right?
I don't think it was anywhere near 2,000. Maybe we might have forced the U.S. to buy 2,000 off of us, which is what
You're
Japan.
serious? That game's
That's what Japan did. They forced, kind
Man.
of forced the U.S. division to pick up games. But I don't think the sell-through, I don't think was any more than like 367 about. It's
Ouch.
horrible. It was.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
And did they think that this had some sort of negative, like Americans weren't into this kind of stuff, or? I mean, did they have that
I
feeling?
think that I don't know, man. I just buried my head in the sand after those sales numbers came through. What am I gonna say?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think they knew that there weren't many, you know, Sega CDs hadn't been
Yeah.
sold, so.
I mean, that's just a logical answer. Well, speaking of Snatcher, the another question we have is, you done work on a lot of games with cinematic feel to them: Silent
Mhm.
Hill, Metal Gear Solid, Snatcher. What kind of movies are you into?
Oh, I would say that I'm definitely into, the kind of movies that are used as primary sources for the Silent Hill games. I mean, I could quote, all the Lynch movies pretty well, and certainly many people recognize that Jacob's Ladder was a very influential thing for some of that. I mean, that's another thing. I mean, we were talking about originality, you know,
Hmm.
and while I think there's great originality in aspects of Silent Hill 2, the plot wise, um, cinematically they steal everything from everything they can find. I mean, they just
Yeah.
rip it right off, and I don't mean to speak ill of the dead, but fucking hey, I mean, take some responsibility. It's horrible because you want to see the influences. You can go directly to the movies. They're taken directly off. Barton Fink, you know,
Hmm.
the fire scene with Angela. I believe it's Barton Fink. What else? You can just go down the list almost. Um, I think The Cell, a horrible movie with Jennifer Lopez, was used as a primary source for maybe Silent Hill 3 or 4.
You're
4.
serious? That movie was so
Um,
horrible.
yeah. It's and it's like this, but because you have to understand a Japanese person that sees a visually breathtaking movie like The Cell, okay,
Hmm.
translated into Japanese, they're not going to be able to appreciate necessarily that it's a piece of shit. You know,
Yeah.
and, it's a good looking video, that movie. And if you're the guys in Silent Hill, um, in particular, who I think probably made the decision to go with The Cell, um, they're all most of those guys are painters. They're all very visual,
Yeah. A lot of it
and that's
is. A lot
the
of Silent
Silent Hill
Hill is
team.
based on the
The,
music, the art, and everything. And
yeah, right, right, right.
even though Silent Hill 3 had like some silly character designs, I don't know why they had the lumbering giant with bandages for his arms or whatever. It kind of goes a little silly. I think that's, I don't
Got no answer for for that
know.
one.
I
I'll
don't know
tell you
if
though, the guy who did the character designs is he's a very quiet guy, but pretty strange guy. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
yeah. Uh, go ahead and moving on here. Let's go ahead and talk about Snatcher. Well, there's a lot of questions to ask about Snatcher, but we only got a few. And I think the first question, you answered this some bit in the Junker HQ interview, was how
Mm.
familiar were you with the game before you went to translation? Did you play any of the other versions and
Uh,
whatnot? And you said they showed you a version. They showed you the PC Romantic version, right?
yeah,
CD
yeah,
Romantic.
yeah,
And what
yeah.
was
Well,
your
I don't know
opinion?
how many other versions are there. That
Uh,
A lot.
as far as I know, there's one that was made for that weird little Japanese computer.
I
Yeah,
guess
they
that
had
was
the MSX,
PC 80
MSX. Yeah.
something.
And I think if I understand correctly, the MXX version simply was missing the final scene. I think they like ran out of
yeah, they didn't include
capacity.
the third act,
Yeah,
third chapter, or whatever.
I think they didn't have enough room on it, capacity. Um, so other than that, I'm not sure how many differences there are. But anyway, I only played that one version. Yeah, they sat me down right there in R&D 6. I remember sitting down where I sat down at that little table, and it was my first experience playing a CD-ROM game.
Hmm.
I was blown away, man. I thought that was the greatest fucking thing. That game. I really, I was so yeah, I was really moved by it. I mean, I thought that the characters were great, and they sold the whole story. And but looking back on Kojima's career and stuff like that, and how he developed, I can definitely see the similarity between that and other games. You know, um,
Yeah.
uh, but I think fortunately Kojima kept his kind of expository, diarrhea of the mouth limited to Jordan in that game.
What was it? The
Somewhat
Japanese
so.
version.
The
Sorry to
computer,
interrupt
right?
you. Let me
Oh,
do
that's
that.
all right.
What was Ryan? What was the Japanese name for Jordan again? Like Goody or
That was
something?
yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
That sounds about right.
I don't want to just to throw in another question for you.
Yeah.
Do you agree with everybody else that the original Japanese abbreviation for the full name of Junker, I think it was like
Two.
Judgment,
Yeah,
Uninfected, Naked,
uninfected,
Kind.
naked, and something ranger.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's why.
yeah, educated ranger. What do I what?
Just what was your opinion when you first saw that?
My opinion of that is that how are we gonna explain that other than it's just I mean, what the fuck would you guys do with that thing? I mean, judgment what is it?
Uninfected,
Judgment uninfected.
Naked, Kind, I think. And,
Naked kind. How do
uh,
you?
how do you bring that over to America?
I
Judgment,
guess
Naked.
I guess I thought we could do better. And what did we wind up with?
Oh man, you got me at the wrong time. I
Oh,
was like neurokinetic or something like that. The
right.
end was
Right? Am I right? So it's like
yeah. You nailed it real good though. That's one of the things I think when I first read the
neurokinetic
Japanese
something.
version,
Yeah, neurokinetic something.
it was pretty bad in Japanese. I mean, these guys don't know English that much, so
No,
it's.
they work with dictionaries.
But I mean, it's like you don't see American developers. I mean, I can't really say because I don't know a whole lot of Japanese, but you don't just see them take like five Japanese words and throw them together. If you, that's
It's
just the way.
true. But this brings us to an interesting subject, which is you could kind of use to tie into the larger theme of some of the other questions that I know you want to get into,
Hmm.
and that is when you look at Metal Gear Solid and you look at the fact that it relies upon Western conventions, for its visual storytelling and stuff like that. It's an interesting thing because Kojima is a guy who is an enormous fan of movies, clearly, and he's internalized all these different, Hollywood, cinematic conventions, and managed to. I think he probably wanted to be a movie maker, and he's managed to bring these into video games. And whether or not that's a good thing for games is a whole is a subject for a PhD thesis.
Hmm.
So I'll just leave that for someone else to talk about. But what I wanted to mention is that it's interesting because it's a kind of a blowback. You're looking at all this influence coming from the West to a Japanese guy, and he's bringing it back to the West, Um,
Yeah.
and what was I going to say about that? So these how did you bring up the subject? The names, like this judgment uninfected.
Yeah.
His use of English without really caring about it is an interesting subject. Okay, and you want to talk about why there was some difficulty between us. You're kind of getting into it here. Okay, it's not unrelated, I guess is what I want to say. I guess the best way to put it from my perspective is that first of all he's an auteur. Okay, so he from the very start he has a large ego, which is a necessary thing in order to drive a large number of people to follow a project. Okay,
Yeah.
you
Kojima.
have to. Yeah, you got
Oh
to be a
yeah,
great.
he
You
is
got
a
to
pretty
have
big ego.
you got to have a big ego and be and be sure you're right about
We
everything.
had
I suppose.
sorry, I'm not sorry to interrupt you. But we had a guy
That's
we
okay.
interviewed him last episode and a couple episodes ago, and he said that he met Kojima at some sort of party, and I can't remember if he said that he was drunk or something, but he wanted to get it. He asked, can I have a picture with you? And not only did Kojima say no, Kojima gently pushed him away and said, "Mr. Kojima is busy now." I'm like, come on.
Is that right?
Yeah, and
I got.
I took it,
To be fair, he does get a little tipsy at those parties.
yeah, there's actually pictures of him kind of drunk with Heineken in his hands or something like
Is
that.
that right?
Yeah.
I don't. My encounters with Kojima are pretty limited. Some of them are rather interesting, but in any case, I don't know how much I could get into on the air about that, because we were on a company vacation together.
Yeah.
To Mount Fuji.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wacky happenings in the in the inn. Uh, anyway, so the thing is, look, here's where it all happened. Okay, so I do this translation. I'm working on it for 6 months, right?
Hmm.
You know, I went crazy doing this translation. I had to go on medication. You know, I was starting to have panic, attacks, and I had to go on like some kind of like, and went on. Curiously enough, ironically enough, I was on, I think basically the same thing that Snake was on, the diazepam. Basically, we were both on the same drug there at the same point, um, for different reasons. He wanted to relax his hand so he could shoot, and I wanted to relax my hand so I could type. You know.
Hmm.
Um, but anyway, the point is I do this translation, and um, in the interest of achieving what I felt Kojima was trying to achieve with his audience, um, he gets an impact when he does a cliche of a Western movie, for example, because Japanese people, right, they've grown up on Western movies too. So, but it's a different dynamic because they're not as sophisticated or, blah, 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 blah. It's a different culture. So he can achieve the same impact with a Japanese audience, say, with a line that's so cornbally that with us it would achieve nothing but a snicker. Okay, are you with
Hmm.
me?
Yeah. Here in
Okay.
America, that way you know I'm a sicker, right?
And I can give you a line that got through, for example, past me because it was forced past me. And these are going to be the lines that are the ones that we do snicker at the most. Love blooming on battlefield. Any of you guys think I wanted to put that in?
Yeah, I kind of was
You know,
divided on that one. Love blooming on the battlefield.
yeah,
It
believe me,
just felt out of place.
Yeah,
well, I had other things I wanted to say. Believe me,
yeah, and
um,
Otacon just comes
but
out of nowhere, you know.
when you got a couple of flunkies sent from Japan to attend the recording session, especially because they weren't quick enough to catch up with everything I put in the translation.
Mm.
It was too much text, so I got a lot of stuff passed initially, and then they caught some of the stuff on their first read through. Why did you write this? They'd say to me, and I'd say, well, and believe me, I was always trying to really service the demands of the game and achieve by changing the translation so it wasn't a direct translation in some cases. I wanted to achieve what Kojima had been achieving among his what I felt that I knew what he was going for so that I could actually achieve it better by not translating directly. But that is lost in translation when you have his flunkies are going over the game, especially later when they made Integral. They went over it with a fine tooth comb because they had to lay it out 1-to-1 ratio for this option of choosing, which you want to go with, right?
Yeah, and they included
Um,
English voice acting too. Was the text edited any? The Japanese
I don't,
version?
I don't, I don't know.
Ah,
I don't know.
okay.
Um, but they went over it with a fine tooth comb, 1-to-1 ratio, looking at each line, probably guides with dictionaries, I'm here in America. I don't have an audience with him anymore. The work's done. So now people are whispering in his ear, and he's a guy with a very big ego. And what they're whispering in his ear is, "Hey, this is different. Hey, this is different. Hey, this is different." You know, and
Yeah.
if you're a person with only one language, you may suffer from the misconception that to translate something is to replace it with the words that are the equivalent that you can find in a dictionary. So you just look in the dictionary and you say, okay, this is the word for converse, and you just put this here and you just put this here. It's not like that. It's not like that if you want to get. So when people, assholes in particular, whose initials may be SD, you know,
Oh yeah.
when there's when there are troll-like figures working in the background, you know, like
Yeah, and
little
rapping for
trolls,
DDR every now and
yeah,
then.
working in the darkness underground, whispering in the ears, and they say, this guy's disrespecting you. He changed your translation, and where do I didn't get my chance to speak. I didn't get my chance to say, hey, I was, hey, the fans love it and they thought it was cool, and it got voted game of the year, and it broke the mold you know for localizations in games, didn't it? I mean, it, is that just my memory? I don't remember seeing any good really well done localizations before that.
Except
Even
for
now,
Snatcher.
people are saying they would still rather have that kind of translation for the future
Except for
games
Snatcher, yeah.
than the direct translations that are being done now with Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3. It just feels the language is stagnant. It
Well,
just
let me ask you. I mean, and this is the thing. I mean, the guy's got some of the most preposterous ideas. I mean, look, it's just my idea, but who the fuck is going to believe something about a guy with an arm that talks? I mean, no, I don't know. Did I get too old or something? Is that not the stupidest fucking idea?
Yeah, that kind of
I,
stroke a nerve here and
you
there
know,
for some
so it's
people.
like, maybe the guy should have just one person other than a troll like Quasimodo to say to him, hey, you know what? You have this great game team, Why don't you, instead of, hijacking the game, and taking advantage of these, 1,000 people working to make a great visual, game, why don't you allow them to, why don't you allow the story to be the vehicle for the game rather than make the gameplay a vehicle for your, over expository nonsense already? Grow up. That's what I would like to say.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, like, I just beat Metal Gear Solid 2 for maybe the third time. The story gets a little out of hand here and there. It's like every cutscene there's a new plot twist, and it was really overdone. It's like, why is it? It didn't have to happen like that. It's like they just threw it in there just to have it in there, just to make things more complicated than they should be.
Metal
Yeah.
Gear Solid 2 it's an example of a good concept that wasn't executed as well as it could have been. The dialogue just doesn't keep up with what they were trying to
Oh
do.
man, the
You're
translation in
talking about
those
two?
games.
You're
Yeah.
talking about two? Yeah, I don't even know. I've never even played it. I mean, I was pretty bitter about the whole thing, you guys. I put a lot of emotional, I put a large investment of myself into one actually,
Yeah.
and the whole thing really bummed me out, to not get any more work for them, to all of a sudden, be like persona non grata, you know, and like so what, and it's like what did I do to deserve that other than like bust my ass to try to make the best product for the American audience, which is what I was hired to do, you know.
Yeah. And I mean, it came out. Everybody loved the translation. I don't.
So
Well, there's just
why
a
don't you
lot of
guys
dialogue in it that you wouldn't
start a
see.
letter campaign, man? I mean,
Yeah.
it bums me out, because it doesn't it's not good for the
For the consumer, right?
it's not good for the industry. I mean, um,
Oh.
the thing I don't understand about these games and the localization and all this is, um, for the most part, these games, especially in the old days, the Japanese game developers, they're writing to their own audience, right? So for them emotionally, once they, reach their own audience, they they feel spent, they've done what they wanted to do. And so the best games where they're really talking to an audience, um, it's for a Japanese audience, right?
Yeah.
Um, so but the idea that you've got this million, this game that costs tens of millions of dollars to make, and it's going to go to the U.S. and the U.K. and Canada and English-speaking countries, and that you're only going to spend 2 months translating it seems crazy to me,
Well, they
because
only
that's the
spent
game.
2 months translating the European versions.
No, I think they spent more, because on Metal Gear I don't know what they did on 2 and 3 and 4. I suspect they were a lot faster than I did it.
Yeah.
No, nobody does a 6 month schedule for anything except maybe Square. You know.
Oh
The
yeah.
guy who did translate Metal Gear Solid 2, though, was quoted as saying he thought it was one of the worst scripts he'd ever read.
Yeah. He says it
Oh,
was terrible.
I
He's saying
wasn't
exactly what
it
you're saying.
wasn't it this woman Agnes something?
Yeah. Mark said it was a woman too. I wasn't too sure. Agnes
Yeah,
S. Kaku or something like that.
yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, and I talked to her about it. She said it sucked, and I mean, I think she's a real pro. And let me tell you, she charges an arm and a leg too. Wow, she must have.
Huh.
She said the script sucked, and I wasn't surprised at all because, I mean, his scripts suck. Let me tell you, I've read good scripts. You want to know good? Want to know great? You asked me, I think, one of your questions. What was one of the best scripts?
Yeah. Best
I,
translation you've worked on. Yeah.
well, I don't know about the translation. I'll leave that for you guys. But the story, the best stories I've gotten, probably two come to mind. And they have the same initials. Ironically, they're both SH2. I'll
Silent
see if
Hill
you guys
2
can.
and Shadow Hearts
Yeah,
Covenant.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
everybody loves Shadow Hearts Covenant. I have yet to try
Covenant.
it. I
Yeah,
wanted
let me
to.
tell you, that was a really what a like it was a gift of love from the creators. You could just tell that and it was the same thing for Silent Hill 2. These guys, they would have made it for free. They really wanted to make it.
Yeah,
And how different that is from the atmosphere of Silent Hill 3, for example. These guys were burnt out and they were, recycled to make another one.
And 4 wasn't even meant to be a Silent Hill, was
4,
it?
it depends on what you mean by that question.
Well, from what I understand, it was supposed to be a guided and not a full-fledged Silent Hill.
not
They
a
just threw the
Gaiden,
title
like
in.
like room something something. It wasn't supposed to be a Silent Hill game originally. Something completely different.
Well, yeah, that's like one of those yes and no questions because, yeah, it was Silent Hill because it was like the same kind of, part of the same teams working on it, and they were aware of the fact that it was, they were making something intentionally that was Silent Hill but not Silent Hill. So, um, on one level, yeah, they were intentionally making the non-Silent Hill. The Silent Hill team was making the non-Silent Hill. So, you know,
Yeah,
it depends on what you mean.
that kind of ties up all the Silent Hill questions we had to ask, like about
They
the.
didn't want to. They didn't want to. They had just finished making 3, and they didn't want to overtax the license any further than they already had.
Yeah, then a
And
year afterwards, they dropped it not just on one platform, but on I think PC, Xbox, and PS2.
what's going on with Silent Hill now? I don't. I haven't heard from the guys in a while, and
They
I
got
kind
a
of I kind of
PSP
got the
version.
feeling. Yeah, I kind of got the feeling that I'm not going to be in the picture anymore. Silent Hills.
There's Silent Hill Origins that's coming out for PSP, which isn't done by Konami at all. It's done by Climax Studios, and it's bouncing back and forth between two developers, and they're really kind of adding in the whole Resident Evil God of War context-sensitive button
Once
mashing.
something becomes a movie, it's like
Yeah, speaking of the
in a different
movie,
realm. Yeah, speaking of movies, it's like fuck you guys. That movie was a piece of shit.
it was. I mean, I
You
haven't
know,
even seen it. I can just tell
and
immediately it
and
was
and this guy's
horrible.
got the nerve to criticize video game translations. He sucks.
Well, what does he know about translating in the first place? He just goes on the internet, Googles video game memes, and sees Zero Wing and like, oh, okay, well,
He's talking about something that he's not even talking about something that happened 20 years ago. He's like talking about something that happened like 30 years ago. What the fuck?
yeah, this is what game translation's like. It's like, you set us up to bomb. He's quoting it, you know, irregularly, like, oh, they gave us the
Game
phone,
translations.
single,
Whatever. Whatever.
and it's like,
Whatever.
come on, dude.
That movie really sucked, though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he kind of had Roger Ebert. He doesn't really have much of a career after Pulp Fiction. Tarantino dumped his ass on the side of the curb, and he's doing a lot of crap
Yeah,
work.
yeah. But I had a lot to do with Silent Hill 2, especially like compared with my influence on Metal Gear Solid. I had a lot more influence on the Silent Hill series, a lot more, because I directed the motion captures on those two,
Hmm.
and I did everything from the auditions to everything. So I really had a lot of ability to choose which direction I was going with character.
I just have a quick couple questions about Snatcher. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, it's the question about Jeff Lupitin. He said that they were originally going to do a racier version of the American dubbing for the Japanese market. Is this true at
No,
all?
I don't believe that's true. I think that the only thing you could say about that is that we I was on it was a funny recording session. I was working there at Konami at the same time as my twin brother was working at Konami too. I was working at Konami in Tokyo. He was working at Konami in Chicago,
Hmm.
and we both I flew to Chicago to do these the Snatcher things, and he was on the sessions too. And we did it in some little, it was unusual to do it in Chicago. We found some studio, and he pulled together some people out of somewhere, and we did kind of
Yeah.
auditions and casting on the spot, and those guys were great. And I remember Jeff, funny guy. Um,
Yeah, he's a comedian for
oh, is
Chicago
that right?
radio. Hmm.
He was a funny guy. He was a funny guy. We had a really great time on the set. everybody had a lot of fun because it was unusual for them to get the experience of working together to do dramatic scenes. Again, it was all because of the advent of the CD. But anyway, so we probably took extra stuff. I mean, we knew that there were some things that were definitely not cool, for the U.S. audience, like Katrina or whatever, Katarina, whatever her name was. She was 14 in the original, man.
Yeah,
14.
and naked too.
Yeah, and naked, panties in a bunch on the floor, So, and he smells them. He sniffed her panties. This is a 14-year-old girl.
Oh man, and
But
he's so perverted in his games,
Oh, they really are.
Oh, you should
Yeah.
play through Metal Gear Solid 2 sometime, just for the humor of it. 'Cause he's got Raiden getting peed on, running around completely naked with his hands over his crotch, doing cartwheels.
Yeah, yeah.
I have never heard it like that. Running around naked doing cartwheels.
Yeah, I mean, so it's like, for that matter, what is the deal with Raiden? I mean, people, I don't know what to say. I mean, it's like
You want to play a snake?
the guy gets away with more than Bush, is what I want to say. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, you could drop in a character like Raiden, and you still get put on people's lists of genius. I don't know. That's cool.
Well, I mean, like he said, like Raiden was be like the player going through it and seeing all this weird shit and going, yeah, what is
Whole spiel about him being a unisexual character.
Oh, I understand. It's like Eugene Ionesco's use of Le Béranger as the everyman in The Rhinoceros, of course. Yes, I understand what he's referring to, but that's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, and one scene, the President of the United States feels Raiden, just reaches for his dick and starts feeling him. And he
He's
goes,
like,
"Are
"You're
you
a man? What?"
You're a girl? No way. You're kidding me."
What he reaches for his dick and explores down there so much that he can determine his gender.
Yeah, he just cops a feel halfway through the game.
He just looks at him and he takes his
Yoink.
hand and grabs his balls and
Nah,
Raiden's
man.
like, "Dude, what are you doing? That's not cool."
That's not cool.
And they're,
It's like doesn't Borat do that?
yeah,
Isn't
something
that
like
like a Borat
that.
shtick?
He
Very
just,
nice.
yeah, he just grabbed his balls and.
Oh, you want to do my crump? My shrimp.
I mean, it's so weird though. And it happens in Metal Gear Solid 3. It doesn't stop in Metal Gear Solid 2.
So yeah, it's
Well,
weird.
3 is more it's pulled back a lot more. 2, you're just watching it wondering, what the hell is this?
But I put in that weird shit about, like, so for example, Revolver Ocelot, talking that weird shit about the. Have you ever? There's nothing like the feel of sliding a greased bullet into a. Yeah, I put that. That was mine. I mean, that wasn't.
That's
I don't-
priceless, man.
I don't remember that being in the original, but I think I was riffing off of what is that? Full Metal.
Alchemist, right? Or
No,
Full Metal Jacket.
Full Metal Jacket. Yeah.
I
think
think
that
It
was
wasn't even
Alchemist.
out back then.
Yeah,
It was
and
not
well, actually, there's a lot of theories flying around that Meryl was raped by Ocelot or something like that. That Ocelot or something.
Maybe it was just Ocelot's hand.
No, players have always been
It's
arguing.
detachable.
Yeah, players have always been saying like Meryl, she says I've been through so much, worse, blah 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 blah, and people are like she must have been raped. Ocelot must have raped her or something.
Mm.
And was this ever implied in at all in the game, or is this intentional, or
No, I don't remember any. No.
you just think it was
What in Metal Gear Solid 1?
Yeah, Meryl.
Yeah,
being-
she said something about going through torture
Oh.
and things even worse than that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, actually, that you did kind of just ring a bell right now. Yeah, but I mean, yeah, right. I might have just stuck that in though. I mean, I don't remember it as being a major theme. Sometimes I had to just cover lip flap.
Yeah,
It's like Popeye. You know why Popeye goes? You know why he does that?
because they already
You know what,
animated
Popeye? You know why Popeye makes all those weird
it.
oh, I don't know. He talks under his breath and shit. It's all to match lip flap.
Yeah.
You know. because
I see what you're saying.
they had the animation done first, so they got the voice actors watching, doing the picture, and they're trying to cover these mouth movements.
Well,
So for all I know, I had Meryl say, and things were, I mean, I don't think it was. I guess I'm saying I don't remember it as being an important thing that was pushed in any script or conversation with Kojima, but I may have just felt that it would work for the scene. So if it got people to talk about that something might have happened, that's good, and maybe it did.
Yeah.
About Metal Gear Solid, though, I mean, with all the technical jargon that was thrown in, how did you have to handle that? A lot of research, or?
I think that there was. Well, when you say technical jargon, I guess it depends on which thing you're referring to. There was a lot of very specific stuff, and I did some really weird, a lot of weird research. I mean, I'm doing research on like Inuit, Olympic Games and stuff like this, and I'm doing research on how, FAMAS scope rifles work with their laser scopes, and on how grenade launchers do this, or on how nuclear missiles have this kind of code thing built into them. So, yeah, I mean, I did ton of research for this, and then I actually participated in there was a strategy guide company that I helped do a strategy guide for afterwards that had this neat little section about the real world of Metal Gear Solid. I think it's a defunct company now.
It was Millennium, wasn't it?
Millennium, yeah, that sounds right, yeah. No, is it Millennium? They had a weirder name than that, though. They had a really crappy name. They might have changed to Millennium at some point. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, Metal Gear Solid was a lot of jargon, yeah, as you put it. And some of it was stuff that might not even have been in the original script, but I added some military-sounding language to make certain stuff sound, more official. I made up some shit that didn't exist. Like the intro sequence. The very famous starting. With the with Campbell's talking.
Your one-man SVD.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, right. I mean, I remember retooling that scene so many times. To try to get it to, be like a cool intro, like a movie, and I felt like really in sync with Kojima. I knew what he was going for, because he was relying on the same, movie conventions that I'd seen, television or movies or whatever. And so it wasn't a direct translation that I knew would work. To do what Kojima wanted, I had to write the English, version of it, but it wasn't such a direct translation, and that's why it really bummed me out that they misunderstood so much of my. I don't know if they misread my intentions or misread. I think someone told Kojima that I dissed him in some respect.
Huh.
Because he would say, I think he thinks that his words are, he justifiably he thinks he's a good writer or a good storyteller, and as a person of only one language, maybe he suffers from the misunderstanding that if only his words were translated, then they would be fine in any language. And you just need a better translator who can take his words and not change his words,
Yeah. And, I mean, it doesn't work like that,
It doesn't work that way,
But, moving on, I have a quick question that, I'm not sure, you said you never played any Metal Gear Solid after 1, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So you don't know anything about the changes they made to Twin Snakes, right?
I think I've read a little bit on the subject. Yeah. In fact, just before we started doing this, I started trying to poke around a little more to read about that, but I couldn't find.
Well, I mean, a lot of the changes.
I'm interested, yeah.
Well, some changes. One guy pointed out, he was on episode 7. He said that they changed a couple lines to match the newer cutscenes. For example, Meryl originally said something like "war is not glamorous" or anything like that. Something like that, correct? When she's getting shot. But you can't have her say that, because you have Snake doing all this cool stuff, making war look amazing. He's fighting ninjas. I mean,
right.
And he's jumping off, rocket launchers.
What did she say in the original?
In the original, it was "war is not glamorous."
War is ugly. There's nothing glamorous about it.
Yeah, that's it. And they changed it to something else.
Changed it. Oh,
War
I
is
see.
meaningless.
Yeah, you
They
can't say
changed it to that.
you can't say war is ugly when they're trying to make it look amazing. You know, they're Snake's doing this Matrix stuff. Why you can't say that?
He's doing backflips off of missiles. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like Konami has retranslated two of your games,
Yeah.
Metal Gear Solid and Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, what kind of feelings do you have for this?
Well, I'd be lying if I told you it makes me happy that they retranslated work that I worked on. But I'm not sure I'd put them in the same, category necessarily. First of all, Symphony of the Night. I guess I should say my part about Symphony of the Night.
I've been waiting for this. Honestly, I love Symphony of the Night and the
Great
voice
game.
acting. Yeah, the dialogue. I
Great
love
game.
everything about that game. Trust me.
Symphony of the Night I think represents almost the pinnacle of of 2D side-scrolling gaming. I don't think it can get any better than that.
Yeah.
Graphically, I just love that shit. I eat it up with a spoon.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the translation's fine. I stand by my translation. And
I just stand
voice
by it, too.
acting. If I could get alone in the same bathroom where they recorded it with the guy for 5 minutes, in the same bathroom that it sounds like they recorded it in, then I'd like to fucking do a number on the guy. But no, actually, I know who's responsible for it, and it ain't me.
Who?
I did the translation on text. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You want to know his name?
Yeah.
Want his name? I'll tell you offline. I mean, I don't know. He was working for Konami at the time, and
Die,
me tell you his
monster!
name.
You don't belong in this world. I mean, that line sounds so cool. I
look,
think the
but
volume
there were a
is
lot of
great.
lines that could have been good, like if they had just taken a moment and said. The problem was you can't put a Japanese dude in charge of directing a fucking English voice recording session, and his English was very good. He was a Japanese dude who spoke very good English, but it's not good enough. Believe me, you have to to be a fluent speaker, a person who is a movie fan or who's an actor himself, or is close to actors, or close to being an actor, or hears voices in their head or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But you gotta have someone who's got some talent for that job, and he couldn't discern if an actor was doing a shitty job, asleep at the wheel or not. So the actors. So I mean, I wrote a line, for example, what do you hear?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, admittedly, not 100 people out of 100 aren't going to know that is a perfectly acceptable, old archaic way of saying what are you doing here, And if you read it in print, what do you hear? Maybe you'd see it, in the old Conan books or something like that. It's kind of a faux medieval kind of speaking.
Yeah, because
okay?
it's a medieval setting with medieval characters.
Yeah,
It's
so
only logical they talk. Like
it's like saying, "What dost thou hear?" Okay, what do you hear? What dost thou hear? But the point is, if your actor sitting in a bathtub, I don't know what the fuck was wrong with that recording, but didn't it sound bad? The ambient.
Yeah, I mean,
it sounded like echoey. I don't know, but anyway, this guy, he didn't say the lines right. Okay, you could have made those. An actor can make any line sound good, and if they can't make it sound good, then it's the director's job to write a new line, or the actor to offer up a new line. But some fucking body's got to stop it. But it's horrible. When I heard that thing, I was as shocked as anybody. What is a man but a pile of secrets?
Yeah. Have you ever met any of the actors, or?
No, I probably have actually. I met most of those guys in Japan at some point, so I probably know who they are. But I never pursued it to find out who did what, or I think it's a dude I don't really know.
Robert Bellagrade or something like that.
Yeah, I know who I know who that is.
Have you met him in person? He's so
yeah, I know him.
He's kind of mysterious,
No, I'll tell you about him.
All right.
He's a freak. He's a real freaky guy.
Really?
He's freaky as hell.
Why is his
And
voice? He sounds black.
He's a really freak. He's got a freaky, deep voice. He's primarily a musician, as I recall. I think he's a sax player.
I think
he's a freaky guy, man.
Yeah, I think I did
He's
some
a freaky
research
guy.
on him.
He's like bald, and he's got like a little goatee and stuff, and kind of scary looking too, if I recall. He's freaky looking, super skinny or something freaky about that guy. But he's the kind of guy who's very typical of voice actors in that, like, it's like a job for him, right? So he'll go in there, he'll say, okay, man, whatever you want, I'll give you whatever you want, and that's true, he will. But it also means, he's like a 6-year-old boy who only do what you tell him to do. Wipe your feet, So he'll wipe his feet as little as possible. You got to say, okay, no, look at your fucking shoes. They're dirty. What? Get that shit out of the cracks, That's the way it is. You got to, with voice actors, you got to, they're,
They need
so especially
directing,
this guy, he's got other shit going on in his life. He doesn't care about some stupid video game. Some character named Alcard. Okay, so I'm good. He comes in the morning. He reads the script. What's this guy named? Alucard? And yet, of course, fans expect that everyone's going to be as motivated as they are, but they're not. So if you want a good localization, you guys should support translators and support localizers, and because people like me who care about the shit, guess what? We get busted for caring about it. I mean, I would have worked on Metal Gear Solid 2, 3, and 4 if I kept my stupid mouth shut.
Yeah. Oh, well, you were talking about, I guess we'll just go ahead and call him the
Hey, man,
troll or
does this
SP.
whole thing sound like a big fucking rant?
No, it
Does
sounds.
this interview sound like a rant?
No, it sounds excellent. I mean, it's just kind of like, behind the scenes, everyone in
feel
the
like I'm
press
just-
is afraid to touch, the whole
I
matter.
feel like I'm whining about everything.
Nah, but I mean, like, Robert Belgrade, whatever his name is, he's always involved with bad voice acting. Like he did
Yeah,
Winback, and it was horrible.
Because I don't think he cares. But you got to look at the director and it's the whole process. I mean, that's what I was trying to say before. Is like, how can you have a game? There's so much text in game and so much voice in games now. You can't. It's not fair to expect that this game, where millions of dollars were spent and 2 or 3 years was spent developing it, that the translation is just going to be done in 6 weeks or 8 weeks. It's kind of unreasonable, because as translators or localizers, we probably don't have visuals to look at. We don't know what the fuck's going on. I'm translating a game right now. I've got the lines, but I don't know who's saying what to who. So it's just lines. And I'm supposed to bring some kind of like individual characteristics to the people speaking when I don't even know who's speaking. And why is it that way? Because they got a text dump from a game, and because the game was made by another developer, and no, they don't have time to give me another thing and just get it done, and because hurry up because the team's on vacation and they want to get started when they get back,
Yeah.
So
This wouldn't have to be like an Atlas produced game, would it? Atlas or?
no, it's not.
I figured it would be. They have some decent translations, but some of it can go off course.
Atlas, I would love to work for Atlas because I really admire the games that they pick up. But
Like Shin
not.
Megami Tensei or whatever it's called. Not
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the kind of shit I should be translating.
I think you should have translated Killer 7. I mean, Killer 7 was translated really well, but
Mm.
have you played Killer 7, Eddie?
No.
Okay.
That's cool.
Well, director of that game and Kojima are working together, I guess. So,
Oh,
I mean,
yeah?
I was just a little curious. There was a code in Snatcher that you would input at Jordan, and
Yeah.
it made a little dingle, like the Konami code. And nobody knows what this code does at all. I mean, would you happen to know what this code is, or
It just made the dingle as far as you know?
Ryan will have to fill you in?
Yeah,
on this.
you put in, you just type in Konami into Jordan, and it'll go doo 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 or whatever. And then, I mean, people have said that hey, it uncensors the game, but it really doesn't. So it just appears like it doesn't do anything.
Probably doesn't do anything.
Ah, man. Is there any secrets nobody has found with Snatcher, the Sega CD version, or?
I kind of doubt it.
Oh,
I
man.
kind of doubt. I mean,
It's a very
it's
straightforward game, you know, and it's been
well,
out for a long
the
time.
secrets themselves, I think, were laid out there pretty early on and have been floating around for a while. I mean, the different codes and stuff, the different phone numbers and stuff. We put all the staff, the U.S. staff into Jordan. I
Yeah.
remember asking, asking the U.S. staff, okay, what's your likes and your dislikes and what's your nickname and all that shit. And, I put all that weird, funny dialogue about me and my cat in there, because I just gotten a new kitten and stuff. And I was just goofing around. It was fun for me. I mean, I just wrote some.
Just
Sasaki, Sasaki, the guy in charge of it, just said, "All right, we got some extra room."
Well, I mean, was it like that in the original CD Romantic version?
No. That was all. That was all. And and by the way, if you want to know Kojima's involvement in Snatcher, Sega CD, think 0, and you'll be overestimating. I mean, he was completely uninvolved.
Oh yeah, we heard about that. Like people keep saying, I mean, when we first posted our news post on the site, like we're interviewing Jeremy Blaustein, or Blaustein, or I'm sorry,
Blaustein.
Yeah,
it's amazing how many people are still crediting you for Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3.
Yeah, they're like,
is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Am I happy about that?
Oh no.
Probably not.
And we considered putting up a notice. This guy did not translate Metal Gear Solid 2.
Please, I mean, really, I don't need the credit.
I mean, I don't know this Agness Kaku person, but I think the translation, it didn't seem like it was done like you did it. I mean, and you even said it earlier.
So, yeah, I mean, I went against the currents, is what I guess I'm trying to say, is that I cared a little bit too much about it, Yeah. And so in the recording sessions, for example, I remember, in addition to Scott Dolph being sleeping on the couch, sleeping there on the couch, and afterwards you hear this guy, you'd think he was fucking like in charge of the whole thing. The guy's a goof. Anyway, I remember the ending scene, for example, and this other guy who came along, Hirano, who didn't even speak English, but he was there as Kojima's mouthpiece. And we're doing the ending scene, and I remember there was this particularly, you know how sappy the scenes get with Meryl, right?
Kinda, yeah.
You gotta appreciate the fact that I tried my best to tone this down as much as possible. The Japanese stuff was so over the top, smelly, sappy that you just would have vomited. You just would have retched. You just couldn't have handled it,
Mm-hmm.
And we're doing this scene, and I remember Hirano was saying something like, make it more sweet, more loving, or more sweet, or something. He's saying like, more, and I'm saying, no, man, less, no, more. I gets on the phone and blah blah blah. Kojima told me that he wants this line to be more, and I know that this guy, he doesn't speak English, he's not understanding where the actors are, or where the emotional scene is at, or where the player, I mean, I totally know he doesn't get it, and so it starts to build into like a disagreement, and then it starts to build into an argument, and I'm in America land here. I'm working to create a great game in my mind, and I'm not in Japan land, which is a place where you don't get into arguments with your bosses, and it was a mistake I made,
Yeah, I mean, like,
and I put myself on the line for the product, and I really literally have lived to regret that.
Yeah, I mean, everybody kind of wants you back from Metal Gear Solid.
It's a bummer,
Yeah, I mean, it's just like people who don't care for the games, they hate the games, they translate them,
and you want to know why the voice actors, why all of a sudden the same voice actor in 2, why he sounded so fresh in 1, but in 2 it sounds like he's doing an imitation of himself, or why he just doesn't
shit.
sound right.
That's exactly
you want to know
what
that,
Ryan
right?
says. Oh
yeah, you
God.
want to know why they just don't sound involved, or why they
Yeah.
Sound like they're going through the motions. And the answer is, as I've already alluded to, especially the older voice actors, the guy that's been there for 35 years, standing up there in front of the mic, he's done this, that, and the other thing, and he doesn't care about the genetic relationship between two clones and blah blah blah. His hemorrhoids fucking hurt. He wants to get, What do you mean? I'm sorry, I shouldn't have eaten that taco. You're sounding a little gassy. Sorry. We had this. I mean, sometimes you guys are. I'm sorry, I'm on back medication. You'll have to be patient with me. It's a horrible thing to direct these guys. And my point is that if you're working on a schedule and you're not on the ball you have to really fight against. You have to struggle to get the best product you can get. It's a struggle. It's not an easy thing. And that means like stopping actors and saying, okay, you just don't sound like you're really into it right now. Pretend that this is your wife, okay? And you gotta stay on top of it. But if you're making jokes in the booth and you're just, woo, I'm getting paid $75 an hour,
Yeah.
whatever, it's not gonna come out good. And I know that those guys were just on autopilot. And I heard you saying in your last podcast, Dave Hayter paid a lot of his own money to get those guys back. And I didn't know that, but it sounds right to me because I got to know Dave a little bit, and I know how into it he was.
Well, I mean, like, out of all the voice actors in Metal Gear Solid 1, I mean,
do you know why that voice came out? Why he came out sounding like that?
Yeah, sure.
Why Snake sounded like Snake?
Yeah.
I think he had a bad I think he had like a cold when he first did the voice or something like that, and he could only go husky, Clint Eastwoodish. And then we worked out the Snake voice, and it was a new voice for Dave, and he had a great experience because he felt so like energized with confidence after Metal Gear Solid. It was like really important to him.
And well, I mean, like, out of all the voice actors, are you saying that Dave was the easiest to work with, or?
I wasn't saying that in particular, but I
my
remember
bad.
him as being he was I would say he was the most interested in the product.
Yeah, he ended up, well, there was a big clash in the voice acting community, union, whatever. He was the only actor to
He
keep
used his
original.
own voice, his own name.
Uh-huh.
That's right. He was like, "Fuck it." I'm
Yeah,
using
wasn't
my
the
name.
first game, it wasn't union supported or
Yeah,
something?
it was non-union.
And everybody
Not
was
union.
using fake names and shit like that.
Yeah.
Who,
That's
who,
right.
who, out of all the actors that you worked with, though, who's the easiest and who is the hardest for Metal Gear Solid 1?
I remember. Well, I probably should spend more time thinking about it, but I think one of the hardest to get motivated. You want to know who sucked, okay? You want to know who sucked. Okay.
Sure.
All right.
Who was the asshole? Who was the one that...
No, you want to know who sucked. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Why don't you tell me who you think sucked, and I'll tell you, what I think. I mean, you guys have more of an opinion than I do.
I'd probably say Jennifer Hale.
Jennifer Hale.
Who's she?
Naomi, yeah. She has the same
Naomi.
voice for every characters.
It's just,
Yeah,
when they
yeah, yeah.
redid the dialogue for Twin Snakes, she was just completely doing it monotone.
Yeah.
Yeah. She made no impact on me, and I don't even remember. So, but I'll tell you this: Meryl's voice was quite a bit huskier than I had the intention of.
Yeah.
Didn't she have a really husky-ass voice?
Yeah, I knew. She sounded like she was 20
bit
years
mannish.
old. Or, like, no, not 20 years old, kind of 18.
And at some point we just said, okay, all right, we can make this work. Yeah, husky. Yeah, she can have a husky voice. Yeah, But
Didn't come out the way you
she
wanted
didn't
it?
suck. No, she didn't suck though. I don't remember anybody. I can't think right now that this guy sucked. Campbell was hard to motivate. He was kind of a narrator type guy who isn't used to doing.
Yeah, ironically, it was a narrator in a Diablo 1 for PC, if I remember correctly.
He had a good voice though. She
Oh,
had a
yeah.
good voice. But who was great? I mean, what's his name? Cam, was it?
Cam Clarke?
Yeah, Cam was certainly very good.
Cam Clarke, yeah. Everybody loves Cam Clarke as Liquid.
He's done
Yeah.
everything from Ninja Turtles to Akira.
Yeah, he's really evolved in the voice acting. I mean,
No, honestly, the hardest ones to work with was to be honest with you, Scott Dolph. No doubt about it. There's no doubt.
and he has like
And
little bits in the
I didn't even
games,
really
too.
work with him. He was, like I said, he was essentially just sleeping on the couch and eating In-N-Out burgers the whole time. Is that recall?
If I understand right, he doesn't work with the Kojima team anymore, though.
He's pretty much universally detested from what I mean. He really raises people's hackles. This guy. You know,
Yeah. He does like.
and you know, you know about his rap career. I guess he fancies himself as something of a rapper.
Oh
Or something.
Oh, are you
shit.
serious?
Oh, you don't know about this? Oh, you guys should dig up some dirt on this. I really haven't looked deeply into it, but I know that there's some. Yes, yeah.
What
Yeah.
was it again? I know he's a rapper. He did
But
DDR.
it can't be completely a coincidence that Kojima named a character Dolph, who's this gay gay general or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then got killed off.
Yeah, I mean, what's with that? Is that Kojima not being passive aggressive, or
He did the same thing with Johnny.
did he?
Hideki Sasaki.
Oh, Sasaki, right, right. So he hasn't done that to me yet. But you know, the thing is, you know, he likes having
Power, right?
a foreigner right hand man.
Mm.
You know, and I think there's somebody who. Oh, didn't Konami just hire someone who?
Ryan Payton.
Yeah, hired from
One
you were
upper
just talking about them.
editor. He was
From
a
Atlas,
freelance writer and stuff like
Was
that.
he not from Atlas or something?
He worked for an Xbox magazine.
Uh,
They hired someone from Atlas, though. Actually, I
yeah, they
forget his
hired
name.
a translator from Atlas, I believe.
Yeah, he worked on Contact. Contact
Yeah.
had an
Oh.
excellent script, but you
I've
know
heard
him,
it's good.
Ryan. You know him. He's like Konami freak or whatever on OneUp.com. That Konami guy.
Oh
This-
yeah.
Yeah, you know that guy. So
Yeah,
that's who I was 15 years ago.
I thought he still worked at Atlas.
Yeah. No, he moved a little bit ago. He said he moved because moving into Konami, he'd get more hands-on with development. That guy loves video games. He's crazy about them.
Yeah, he's a cool guy.
Yeah, real cool. But I mean, like, Scott Dolph, he just doesn't sound like he's, really into this. What's a good word for it? He does
Yeah,
voice work too. I know that, but he only does like little bits, like
In Metal
Dude,
Gear Acid, he did some
anybody could do
announcements.
voice work. To be honest with you, anybody could do voice work, especially in Japan. You know,
Oh yeah, we figure that from.
you know my oldest brother is a voiceover actor.
Isn't your sister a voiceover actor too?
Yeah, my sister is actually he's a transsexual, so it's my brother actually.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, no, it's all right. You know.
Yeah, and Maddie, I think it's Maddie Blaustein.
Yeah,
correct?
Maddie Blaustein. Yeah.
She does a lot of Pokemon work, right? What was it? She voiced the pirate in the opening of the Pokemon movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. She's great.
Speaking on translation, going back to Snatcher again. To this day, don't you? All right. Well, who controlled the censorship on Snatcher? Like Sega said, you can't do this, you can't do that, or
No, the communications were never anywhere near good enough to have enabled Sega to give us direct feedback about what was going to be allowable. So
I mean, I
it
do
really
find
amounted.
Katrina a bit weird.
We couldn't even. I mean, up until the time, when I was working at Konami, there were no. We didn't know what Sony or Sega or whatever were going to object to exactly. We knew certain things they would definitely object to, but with regards to language, did we know that damn would catch trouble or hell? No, we just there were some people that were more careful than others because if you got taken out of the queue, it was really bad.
Mm-hmm.
The acceptance queue, So some people were more worried about it than others. Some teams, and some writers were more careful. So no, we didn't know. The simple answer is we didn't know. But we knew, for example, that a 14-year-old girl having sex with an adult wasn't going to work. So we had to change that. But there were definitely things that we weren't sure about. Was a decapitated head going to cause trouble? I might have written a letter or two to Sega asking for some advice, but things were not organized enough to have it done that well. So
I don't even remember. Then Sega had like their own ratings board for Snatcher. I mean, not Snatcher. Sega, right? Had their own little ratings board for their games. Like,
yeah, if I recall correctly, they all had their own.
Yeah.
They all had their own review procedure. All the companies did that.
And then like Snatcher didn't get like a mature rating. It got like a 13 rating, a teenager rating.
Right.
That
That sounds right.
yeah, that was kind of weird. I mean, what do you when you were writing it, what do you think Americans' reactions were going to be when they walk right into that hospital and they see all the dead bodies, the maggots coming out of their mouths or eyes, and
Mm,
they're decapitated? I mean,
mm,
when you were writing it, how did you?
yeah,
There's a lot of horror for people who were playing, like Mario. There's no blood in those games.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah. You know, you're right. I mean, people looking back now might not appreciate the full impact that that game had on us that had come from nothing but Mario and stuff like that. Like I said, when I first played the game, I was so blown away. But what really left the impression with me was the fact that you could have characters um, that you felt like you knew. You know, that blew me away. I mean, I walked away from the game and I spent time away from the game thinking about characters from a game. That had certainly never happened before. I never even imagined it could happen. So that's what really, amazed me was the emotional
set the value.
content.
Yeah.
Yeah, the emotional connection he was able to achieve, which is, um, it's ironic because actually, so much of Kojima's work actually works in the opposite direction. He's so obsessed with visuals.
Well,
I mean, I could go for hours and hours about my issues about visuals versus, people's ideas about games like, this guy Molyneux, I think it was, who said, Peter Molyneux, he said the best games happen in people's heads. And so I think there's this conflict between creating really graphic, lifelike representations that work against games existing in people's heads. I think people get more psychologically into a game if it's only representative. Better to have an 8-pixel dragon, where you're imposing your own image of a dragon in your mind onto an abstract reality, rather than to have a photorealistic dragon that you essentially ignore because you're, trying to dodge fireballs or whatever. I mean,
it just sets it's not about the graphics, it's about the imagination of the player.
I think so. And so Snatcher hit me on a gut level, but his concept of gameplay sucks. Snatcher gameplay, ho ho ho.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ryan. I mean, I'd say the same thing to Ryan. There's no gameplay in Snatcher.
Kojima has no concept of gameplay at all. Look at Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah, Metal Gear.
One mini game.
I'd argue that, but
Oh, come on! It's one mini game after another. Okay, here's a rocket launcher. Okay, we'll have a character introduce how to use a rocket launcher.
Yeah, Metal Gear Solid 1 is
It's
Metal Gear 2 remade. It's the same thing, just with 3D graphics and the ability to look around. I totally. Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's no game at all.
I mean, I love Metal Gear Solid, but
I mean,
saying,
the first scene in Metal Gear Solid, the first scene. That's the whole thing. That first demo scene. That's the greatest, and it's great gameplay. It's great gameplay. It really is. But I feel like Kojima hijacked. They should have spent the whole game working on different levels like that, instead of
just like hold on,
all this crap about nuclear proliferation and stuff. Did anybody want to read that?
Only like the hardcore people really do, like half the people who write the features for it. So, but,
Yeah.
I mean, like when I play Metal Gear Solid 2, I love deep stories in games, but I get so lost in Metal Gear Solid 2. It's like wasn't needed.
Well, yeah.
I mean, like, I know if I say
I
this,
think he didn't have anybody to pull him back from the brink, man. He didn't have anybody to say to him, and I would have said it to him too.
I mean, like if I say this, I know everyone's gonna hate me now, but Metal Gear Solid 2, the story is not that great. I'm gonna say it, and I know Ryan.
Why, is that a controversial statement?
It will be. Trust me.
It's a hot button.
Well, I guess people are really going to hate me because
some people go for that
some of
kind of stuff. I mean, different strokes for different folks.
Well, it seems to me I've talked a lot of shit about Metal Gear Solid 2.
No, but you say a lot of good things about Snatcher, and
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Talking Hand? I don't know. I mean,
just a Metal Gear Solid 2. There's so much in there that didn't need to be in there.
what was I reading? I was reading an interesting article about how the world of Metal Gear Solid went from being something which had its roots in a reality to being just like,
fantasy.
way off in fantasy land. I mean, Revolver Ocelot, man. I mean, he was supposed to be, they were grounded in reality. Those characters, they weren't
Like Vamp.
even Psycho Mantis was justifying his psychic abilities by saying that that it had a founding in science. That KGB agents had researched this and blah 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 blah. So it was all supposed to have one foot very firmly in reality.
Yeah, I mean, and not just
Very
that.
firmly, yeah.
Mantis even proved his psychic abilities, supposed psychic abilities to you through moving the controller and reading your memory card. It was
that was just
much more
that was
real.
just trying to blow the player's mind,
And in Metal Gear Solid 2, there's nothing like that. Vamp is... He runs around... The explanation for Vamp, as of now, before Metal Gear Solid 4 comes out, is that a crucifix got stuck into him, and he got stuck underneath a crumbled church, and he had to feed on the blood of his family. That's the only explanation they give you. It's
what? I don't even understand that. I don't know.
I explained it the best I could. That's just the explanation for it. Fortune, through the whole game, they explain it that she has no abilities whatsoever. Fortune's a character that never gets shot. No one can shoot her. Bullets fly around her. Then Ocelot comes out and says, it's because we didn't want you to get shot. We have a special piece of technology on you that doesn't let you get shot.
Wow.
And right after that, after she gets shot and, in the chest, she deflects missiles without this special technology.
They could have turned it. They could have just turned it back on.
Yeah, I think it's just been like, I kind of thought that too. But I mean, after that part, everyone's just like, oh, she has psychic abilities.
So let me ask you guys a question.
Yeah.
Has Metal Gear jumped the shark? Or conversely, when did it jump the shark?
I like Metal Gear Solid still. I think the story in 3 was pretty good. I thought the story in 2 was
felt
crazy.
dumbed down.
Yeah,
Is it time for a sidekick? I mean, other shows that jump the shark.
They gave him a sidekick.
I got a great idea. Bring in Metal Gear Solid. Bring in Metal Gear as a sidekick.
They did for 4.
Oh, they did. Oh.
Yeah, Mark II is a character in 4.
I'm like Michael Myers from Austin Powers.
Yeah. Trust me.
We'll have the king, the Prince of Wales cheat on his wife, and that already happened. Okay.
Well, I mean, it's like, come on, Metal Gear Solid 2 is way too out there, I think. I mean, I love Metal Gear Solid. I love Metal Gear Solid 1, Metal Gear Solid 3. Metal Gear Solid 2 is a game that has me stumped.
Come on. He couldn't make the judgment that the reason people liked Metal Gear Solid was because of Snake. That was so hard to figure out.
And then
that bringing in Raiden was going to be a mistake. This
think
gay-looking guy who nobody wants to. What? Am I the only one saying this? I'm sorry.
Well, he went over well in Japan, though, didn't he?
Yeah, he kind of well in Japan.
From what I understand, the first Metal Gear Solid didn't do well in Japan.
I don't know. I don't know.
But Raiden is extremely popular over there.
Is that right?
Not so much in Europe and America, though.
Well, he's a Bishonen, so.
Yeah, they like girly guys over there in Japan.
Yeah, no, what did you say?
In a country that publicizes GACT and turns them into a.
Did you say Bishonan? Did you say Bishonan?
Yeah.
Well, I pronounced it wrong, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay, Bishonan, yeah.
Girly men.
Yeah.
Beautiful guys is what they're...
Well, we have those now here, right? The what are they called? The metrosexuals or something? No, I mean, isn't this the same thing?
Yeah, like Tom Cruise, Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing.
Everyone thinks they're gay, and they admit that they're not gay. They're completely straight. Those kind of guys, right? The guys that are girly, they care so much about their looks. It's kind of like the same with Raiden. You got the president of the United States manhandling him, and it's just like, oh my gosh, you're a girl,
Yeah.
I mean, a guy. My bad, a guy. And there's a Freudian slip there for you, Ryan. And it's like, that didn't need to happen. I mean, come on. But I mean, they really poke fun at Raiden in Metal Gear Solid 3.
You can kind of look at it as a wink to the players, like, yeah, we know what we're doing.
One of the actresses, I can't remember who it was on Metal Gear, was an actress from a soap opera that I watched when I was a kid.
Hold on.
And it's hard for me to remember now because they all used fake names.
I'm thinking of all the she was female.
She's Hispanic, I believe. And she has long, straight, black hair. And she might have been. Who did she play? She might have been the Doctor, actually. Come to think of it, I can't think who else she would have been.
There's Natasha. There's Naomi. There's
Or maybe.
Melee.
Oh, you know what? Maybe she was. She might have been Sniper Wolf actually.
Yeah, she has that Hispanic kind of sounding voice.
Yeah, it might have been Sniper Wolf.
She's supposed to be I forget her nationality. I just played this game the other night. But yeah,
Has anyone ever seen? You know what I would love to see? I understand you can see my ghost in the Sniper Wolf scene.
really?
You know the transparent ghost thing, right?
Yeah.
I've never seen the pictures. So if anybody listening to this podcast wants to get a picture of my ghost, I understand if you take a picture at the corpse of Sniper Wolf, you can see it. But I've never seen the picture, and we really love to.
We got crazy guys. You'll have it in first minute it's posted. Yeah. Oh man, we're at an hour and 30 minutes. We got it like a couple more minutes.
Well, this has been a lot of fun, you guys. If there's any other burning questions,
yeah, we got a few more. Oh.
all right.
It's about Policenauts. We know at no point you had no involvement in translating it. We're not.
That's right.
Yeah, we're not known. It's funny because when we posted this news article, everyone's like, "Tell us why he didn't bring Policenauts over. We want to know." One guy's like,
"Me?
Yeah, they're like, "Why didn't he bring it over? Where's my Policenauts?" And we got guys who have never played or beaten Policenauts. They say it's their favorite game, and they have it in their signature in their avatar. They're like, "Yeah, I love Policenauts."
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
I blame it on
great.
Jeremy Blaustein for not bringing it over.
Blame it on me? Jesus Christ! What?
No, they never said that. They're just some guys are like, "Tell them to bring it over now."
Even when I was at Konami, there was those who wanted to do it. There was those in America who were sending letters. It was a very important work for Kojima, and
Somebody lost their job over trying to get it to the U.S. That's all I know.
is that right?
Yeah.
It wasn't me, and I never. I mean, I would never have had any way of getting. Those decisions were made based on economics, and it certainly wasn't helped by the fact that Snatcher sold 367, versions. I'm sure that didn't help.
Yeah.
People knew it was very, and as I understand it, Policenauts was very wordy. People people didn't have the experience of translating hundreds of thousands of words back then and handling 4 hours of video. I mean, it wasn't done.
Yeah,
So
Mark, the guy
it
who
would have been a
translated
huge. Yeah, it just would have been a huge thing, and nobody felt that they were going to see enough sales from it. So that's all.
He's got a printout of the entire script translated, and it's like a
Who
3-inch
translated
thick
it?
stack of paper.
Well, who translated this thing?
Mark Laidlaw. He's one of the guys who works at Junker HQ, and he helps out on the site here. And
I see. Mm-hmm.
he pretty much did all the legwork of the translation himself.
Wow. Well, he'll never get those 6 months back then.
Hell, it was
Or
3
a year
months.
or whatever. I mean, I don't know how long it took, but
I mean,
I'm
it's
sure
a
it was
wordy
quite.
game, but
To Mark, I say, "Otsukare-sama deshita."
what?
It means, honorable hard work.
He's actually a big fan of yours. He's the guy who's in like, yeah, I can't wait for this interview. I had to run most of the questions that we had by him first.
Is that right?
Yeah. If I didn't, we'd be asking you stuff that you've already answered before. But I mean, like, getting to hear this interview kind of brings a whole new perspective onto Kojima and Metal Gear Solid. And the thing that's really sad is that you want us to cut out some bits, and we will do that. It's like, man, this. I don't think everybody would think of Kojima and Konami Computer Entertainment Japan West or Kojima Productions, whatever you want to call them these days, the same. I don't think I can look at them the same. But I mean, I guess it's just to expect.
I don't know what to say. I mean, there's aspects of Kojima that I guess deserve the label of genius because he can bring projects together and inspire people to thinking that so on some level. Right, but have you watched Star Wars lately?
Well,
you guys, original Star Wars.
Actually, I was just watching it the
The
other
movie
day.
sucked. I mean, you watch Star Wars and you say, "Where did this fucking guy learn how to direct?" It sucks.
Every other scene cut is a pan.
Right. Am I right or am I wrong? I mean,
right.
I know I was 10 years old when it came out, but he doesn't know how to make a movie. Clearly, George Lucas doesn't know how to fucking make a movie. It's kind of the same thing about Kojima. It's like, on one level, you say, man, this is like
Brilliant.
such tripe. Such tripe, such smelly tripe. But everyone's got an idea, and the actual people that go out and get the shit done and burned onto, games and, are very few. And he's got the qualities that made it all possible. And he inspired a lot of people. He inspired me. I just think his worst qualities are that he goes on too long. I mean, everybody knows that. I'm not the only one to say that.
I stand by that. Metal Gear Solid 2 went on for way too long. I think there's a story can be complicated, but I think there's times where your story can be too complicated and contain too much in it.
No doubt. Look at Silent Hill 2. That's such a simple story.
It's simple and it's deep.
It's Hitchcockian. It's like so simple because
it's one of those.
I think that, but stories follow. It's like Occam's razor. Occam's razor.
Mm-mm.
It's kind of like this, I think, for writing stories too, because stories have an internal logic of their own, and if you have to twist them so badly, then you've not done, service to your own story. They should be simple,
Yeah. It's like Silent Hill 2. You can play it through on your first time, you'll understand it all. But you go back and you see so much in it that you're like, I didn't see this before. I don't understand this part. And you got people on the internet just like putting out all these different looks at the story, like in GameFAQs. Dan Burlew, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he has his own little theory on GameFAQs and just text and text and text. Like, people are actually going through all of these games and just like analyzing all the bits and pieces that you put in there.
I'm trying to remember how I know Dan Burlew.
He kind of has like a little bad rep in the Metal Gear community, though. He did a poor job on Metal Gear Solid 3 Guide, if I remember correctly.
Pretty much every guide he's worked on, to be honest, except for Silent Hill.
Oh, he's a guide guy.
Yeah, he works for Brady Games.
I think he did. I haven't seen him.
He did the Metal Gear Solid 2 guide, and he did the 3 guide, and they were just horrible.
Yeah, especially 2. I think it kind of lost track right halfway through it.
Yeah.
But I think that's about it as far as our questions. But we have one more that we can say specifically for the last, and that's right down here.
Well, I got one more question to add in, if it's all right.
Go ahead.
All right.
Shoot.
What are your thoughts now? I don't know if you've heard about this yet or not, but Kojima is doing a sort of revival of the Snatcher franchise, and they're planning a radio drama and a possible sequel on the Wii. And what are your thoughts on that?
Well, there was a Metal Gear Solid radio drama in Japan, wasn't there?
They just got translated by Mark again. He
did it there. What are my thoughts on him reviving the Snatcher thing? I don't know. I mean, so many levels to answer that question. On a personal level, as a fan, I like Snatcher. It's cool, so I can answer like that. Snatcher was excellent, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's despite the fact that it was, a direct rip-off of Blade Runner and Terminator, with a little Terminator thrown in on the top. I think it was a great piece of work. But having said that, you do have to understand it was a direct rip-off of Blade Runner. All you fans out there, love you, but I think that what is a character? What is this guy Gillian, right? Whose real name should have been pronounced Jillian, which is a girl's name who I didn't even know at the time, And what is this character? It's a combination of the lines that I wrote and that actor, what's his name that you were saying before?
Jeff Lupetin.
Jeff Lupetin, who was so funny, man. I mean, he said those lines so funny. I remember this one line. Oh God, he just cracked us up because, God, he brought this really wry, like sarcastic sense of humor to it that you can't write into the script and you can't repeat in a radio drama. So it's not going to be the same for me, and it's not going to be the same for. He just, I can't remember the line that he just said some line in a slightly different way, like that old joke about, what's that, we make this joke, directors and actors and voice studios make this joke when a actor reads a line so poorly because they don't read it correctly.
Yeah.
like they don't understand how the line was meant. So the joke we say, "What's that up? What's that up in the road ahead?"
Oh,
Man,
man.
what's that up in the road ahead? Because they're reading the line wrong.
Yeah, and like,
So what's it without Jeff? Jeff was Gillian. It was hilarious.
well, I mean, like you said that Gillian's name was supposed to be pronounced Jillian, right?
Yeah, it's a girl. I mean, I didn't know back then. I'd never heard the name.
You
But
serious?
subsequently,
No one here knew that either. I don't think. Everybody just calls him Gillian because that's the way it looks. I never thought it was supposed to be Jillian though.
yeah, I thought it was like like Gideon or something like that. But
On the
subsequently,
Japanese version is like Girion. Yeah,
is that
Girion.
right?
Uh,
Well, that's because somewhere along the line, Kojima got the mistake. He read the name, he must have read the name and thought that looks like a great name, and so
put it in there.
whatever.
Girion.
It's the future, man. It's the future where men are named Gillian. But,
Gillian Seed.
so I think it's good that he's reviving it, and it's also understandable because what are you gonna have, like geriatric Snake next? You know.
You're not that far off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting crazy.
Water snake.
There's a camo of that in Metal Gear Solid 3, if I remember correctly.
Is it what?
Camouflage that you can equip in Metal Gear Solid 3, Water Snake or something like that. But, well, in closing now, I mean, we're at 104, 1 hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And, man, it's going to be hard on you, Ryan. You're going to love
That's
this. No, you're going to love it. Every minute of editing. But, in closing, what would you have to say, for the Metal Gear Solid fan community? Like, everyone wants you back for Metal Gear Solid 4. But, I mean, it's already translated, apparently. They just recorded it in LA, and they're going back to LA in a couple weeks to record more. I mean, if they came to you and said, do Metal Gear Solid 4, would you do it?
Oh yeah, I wouldn't hesitate. I love my job. I love writing, and I like directing these things when I get a chance to direct them. And
Would you
I
do
like
it the
the
same
whole-
way as Metal Gear Solid 1, though?
I can't change.
Yeah.
I would do it the same way.
It was fun.
Yeah, I would do it exactly the same way, and I would feel actually like that now I have a what do you call it when a president gets gets voted for, he feels like he has everyone's support. So I'd feel like I had some ammunition in saying, the community wants a cool Metal Gear, Snake who, whatever.
He had
When you bring
sarcastic
actors to it, you gotta, as a director, you have to use what the actors have. You can't
Yeah.
like impose your own thing 100% on it. You have actors, and they have limited voices that they can do, and they have limited ranges that they can do, and
Yeah.
it's fun as hell, though. I'll tell you, I always advocate for the product. I
Mhm.
always, especially if it's a good product. If it's a piece of shit, I don't care. But,
Well, I mean, do you
Um,
think it was right for Agnes to say, oh, the game was horrible shit completely?
no, I think that what she should have done is done her best to make it better. I mean,
Yeah, and that's what you
Yeah.
did, right?
that's what I did. Yeah, that's what I did.
And she
and-
just translated it, went online to her blog and said, this game sucked. I hate the script.
Well, first of all, I'd like to point out that I was really in conflict about saying anything about in this interview. And I haven't said anything for 9 years, but that's 9 years that no one's contacted me from Konami, and I feel like I've just been shit upon, this whole time. So finally, I'm telling my side of the story. You want to put it that way? But no, she shouldn't have gone on right after the job is done and talked shit. No way.
It's just not right. You don't do that.
And what she did was no different than what the voice actors do. They just, kind of asleep at the wheel. Just what do they call it? Putting in your, just putting in your time.
Just go out the door and
Going through the motions.
Yeah.
Just going through the motions.
another
doing the
name to add to your
translation.
credit and everything like that.
Translating on autopilot.
I think that Agnes, she translates a lot of good stuff. Maybe she translates, literature. And so they got her because she's a great translator. So what is a person who translates literature going to read? Think when she gets this? oh, they want me to do a translation in 3 months of a video game? Ugh. Last video game I played was Pac-Man. This is nothing like the Russian novel I just did. And the fuck do I care about this? So I'll just get it done.
Yeah, I mean,
I like games even now. So
she did a Katamari Damacy. She was kind of the
oh
driving
yeah,
force behind making it overly,
really?
yeah, overly girly and yeah, it's Katamari Damacy, and
Oh, is that right? I didn't know she's really so she's in the industry.
she's still in. I'm sure about her other work.
I
I
think
just
she's
know that
just
she knits. She posts on her blog here and there. She
mm.
I hate Metal Gear Solid 2 now. Look at my new shoes I just made.
Hey, if anybody out there listening wants to like help me with my entire internet presence, man, I have money. I just suck at like all things internet. Like, I don't want to spend my time blogging, man, and I don't, you know, it's like,
Agnes does a good job of not doing it correctly. I mean, that's like
is that
working.
right?
Yeah, that's like working at Wendy's and going back and writing a sticky "This job sucks" and posting it right in the manager's door. That's just
Yeah,
what she
yeah,
did.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's not what
blogs
you
can
do.
be a real double-edged sword because it lets you get your thoughts out and be personal and reach out, but now you've got employers, Google searching possible applicants.
Well, yeah, I mean that's right, and I think
That's
that's
what
why I
happened with
was,
David Jaffe, actually.
and that's these things they live forever, and this podcast that I just did with you, I probably wouldn't have done it if I thought there was any chance of my ever getting any work from Kojima again, but I don't really think there is, or Konami for that matter.
Konami
What
does.
happens is contacts dry up. I mean, it's been 15 years since I was at Konami, and people move to different positions, and contacts dry up, and so I pretty much played it out, I think.
Yeah.
Plus, the whole industry has changed so much for localizers. When I started doing this, there wasn't anybody else doing it, and there certainly wasn't anyone good at it. And if you think now about just the brain drain from Square Enix alone,
Oh gosh, those guys, their
you know,
translations. Man.
yeah, I mean, think about
Final
the brain
Fantasy
drain.
748.
And all those guys that have done a bit on a translation for them, or I've done, I don't know if you guys know how many games I've translated. I've translated a ton of games, so
Yeah.
I hire people for them, and they get experience with me, and then they start their own websites, and they say I'm a game translator. So there's tons now of game translators, and there's websites where people bid for lower prices to translate things. So it kind of sucks now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just. Well, you mean I haven't played Shadow Hearts. I always mean to, but it's kind of hard to pick up a copy these days. It seems to be out of
Yeah,
print.
yeah.
And like, how massive is that game? Pretty big, you would say, or
As a player.
well, as a translator, like how?
Oh, there was a ton of movie scenes in it, and
Yeah,
we spent a long time. We spent a month in LA doing the reporting, so there was really a lot. There's like 4 hours of video in it,
yeah,
and I was just really happy with the performances we got out of the actors. I was very happy with the scripts, and I think that it was a great game. It was like it's really funny as hell. What a great script! I just think that those guys wrote a great fucking story.
I
Really
mean, I
great
heard
story.
nothing but good stuff about the story. I mean, it's supposed
I
to
was
be.
I was impressed. I was really impressed, and
Oh,
I got up for doing a good job on it too.
but I mean, like it's just you seem like the last person to do some translation this seriously, where people are. I mean, you did it yourself. I was reading interviews with Capcom translators. There's like four of these guys working on each game. As you
Yeah,
did
that's what I'm
every.
saying. And now they don't do it. No one has the time now to allow one translator to work on a game. But if you really want a game to, if you really want something to be good, that's the way to do it. Because, just as you have a Kojima imposing a vision on a game, right? You have to have a translator imposing a vision on a translation. This is the English language of the game is nothing more than these visuals, but the language is the mode that we think about the game in. It's everything for us. So I don't understand how people can be so short-sighted about the translation. And I think that the Japanese creators of these games have to understand that it's a separate product in some sense, and you have to.
Different perspective
You
on
have,
things.
you got to give enough room to the translators. And the best thing the best thing the game developers can do is to say, you guys localizers, you take it and just make the best French language game or English language game that you can make without trying to. You can't serve two masters. And in these cases, the masters are one, the community that's going to receive the game, and two, the people who made it. You can't serve them both. You have to decide which one. And you can't serve, the otaku fans want me to keep in, salmon roe, like I'm supposed to say that this is like a salt-dried salmon roe, instead of saying it's a fucking shroud or whatever, you know what I mean? Okay, great. It's a salt-dried miso, tinted salmon roe.
Yeah.
Great. Now you know what it is. But on the other hand, I like to keep Japanese words in there. If there's a cultural issue that doesn't exist, in America, I don't like to. I'd rather keep it there. So
Yeah, like
lots of issues like what would be an example, like a kotatsu. Kotatsu is a little table that you sit at, a heated table, right? In the winter you sit under this heated table with a blanket, right? So what are you going to do? You're going to say, are you going to tell you're going to translate it and say, try to include some text that says a kotatsu is a Japanese heated table that people sit at, and so now some people are going to have learned something, or am I going to say, it's just a table because you can't, doesn't matter, or am I going to say, it's a heated table,
Yeah, I mean, I just don't see why some people are so anal. Like, keep it like this. Keep the names Japanese. I mean, like the Japanese name for Solid Snake, or the pronunciation, was it Soriru Snaku or something?
Yeah.
That sounds so silly. But I mean, that's just the way they say it.
I remember having a conversation with Kojima about specifically about the code names,
Mm-hmm.
Revolver, Ocelot, and whatnot. And I said to him, I wanted to change the names. Now looking back on it, I guess he was probably right, but I don't think he thought through his thinking on it. I said to him, you call someone Revolver Ocelot, and that has a certain kind of hibiki, a kind of a echo to a Japanese person, right? They hear Riboruba Oceloto, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe a Japanese person has heard the word Riboruba. It's an exotic word for a Japanese person, but they probably have heard the word. And they maybe know it's kind of associated with guns. They wouldn't have heard Ocelot. They wouldn't have known that name.
Yeah, in Japan.
So the point I'm making is that the impact that the names Revolver Ocelot or Psycho Mantis have on a Japanese person is, let's say it's here. Okay, I'm holding my hand up. That's where the Japanese people receive the name and it impacts them. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say that's how Kojima wanted to impact them. Okay.
All right.
But it's not going to have the same impact on an American person who hears a Revolver Ocelot.
Yeah, I mean, a Revolver Ocelot.
We can
two words that don't match.
You and I can disagree about how it's received among an American person who hears Revolver Ocelot.
I think it's a cool name, but it's not the best English translation.
You and I will agree on the fact that it's not the same as the way a Japanese person would receive the name. So my first inclination would be to try to achieve the same effect. So I would break it down. I'd say, well, what was the effect achieved? How was it achieved? What can we do to achieve that effect? Among the U.S. audience, rather than just saying, "Oh, he chose Revolver Ocelot. Let's make it," because it did sound silly to me. Psycho Mantis, Revolver Ocelot. Looking back now, after years and years have passed, it no longer, bothers me. But certainly at the time, I felt like, yeah, that's stupid.
About Ocelot, though, I mean, I'm sure there's somebody out there who's gonna educate me about this later because it's probably a stupid question, but the name Shalashaska, was that yours, or where did that come from?
Shalashaska? That's a good question. I think that was like, you're bringing this up after 9 years, and I hadn't thought about that in a long time, but that was like one of those things that I did a lot of research on, and I don't remember whether or not that was something that I, sometimes I would do research and find out something, and sometimes I wouldn't. So Shalashaska, I don't remember if that was one of those things that I said, oh, fuck it. Sounds okay. Maybe he had in katakana he had written Shada Shasuka. I don't know. I don't remember. I think he probably had something in katakana written there, and I probably would have tried to do the research to see if it was a real word in Russian or something. But you have to understand it's very difficult to go from Japanese katakana and then try to figure out what the original spelling in English might be of a Russian word, you know?
Yeah.
So sometimes you can solve the puzzle. Sometimes there was no puzzle to solve because maybe it was made up by Kojima. So I don't know the answer to your question. Probably it's made up, but it doesn't matter as long as you don't know.
But I mean, when you look back at it all, out of all what you've done, I mean,
It was so important to me. Yeah, it was so important to me. Metal Gear Solid was really important to me.
And then, you know, Scott Dolph comes in and shits all over you and says, you know.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
He acted.
It was it was a great game. It was a great experience. I feel so good about having done it. I know it had an impact, and nothing could make me feel better than that fact. You know, and
it was a translation with balls, if you think about it. You know, no one wants to do
thanks.
a translation like
Not
this.
many
Thanks for saying that.
games that you hear lines like "bleeding heart liberals." And,
Oh, are there lines like that?
yeah.
I mean, like,
I should like to review the text sometime.
but I
See
mean,
what I wrote in there.
as I said, it's a translation with balls. It has meaning. It's not afraid to go out there sometimes. And I think that's why everybody loves it. I mean, it just sounds like it was written in English. Like it wasn't.
I never imagined that they were going to do something like Integral and compare the lines. I thought my job was to satisfy the American audience, as well as I felt that Kojima had satisfied his own audience. I really thought it was a great game. I mean, I don't want you to think I've done nothing but bad talk Kojima, because I really thought Metal Gear Solid was the bomb, man. I thought that was such a great game. I was so happy to be working on it. I was so motivated, and I just tried to do my best. And they were great enough to give me the time to work on it, and I think that it shows in the finished product. You know.
I think everybody agrees with you there too.
Yeah.
But I mean, gosh, we're like exactly at 2 hours now. Thank you for taking the time to do this with us.
Well, you guys were great. I'm glad I wasn't talking to some kind of uncritical fanboys here, and I hope that that your audience is as intelligent about it as you guys are, because video games, I think, deserve some real analysis and thought. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think some people overanalyze stuff on the internet. They try and oh, this is wrong, and some people don't take the time to do the research to realize you didn't translate Metal Gear Solid 2 or 3. You had no part in the translation or any sort of translation of Policenauts, and we had guys
except for a year and a half at Konami. I was a freelancer ever since then, and freelancers cannot argue. They can't say there's that's like so I was arguing on this job to get a better product, but in general after that I kind of really busted my spirit, and I haven't argued much like that since then. I got to feed my family, so you take a job, and even if there isn't enough support and you don't know if this is going to work or what this really means, you do your job, and that's why. But that's just going along to get along. That's why the voice actors suck. And that's why Agness sucked when she said do what she did, and I'm probably sucking to some extent in what I'm doing.